דרך לשוב אליך, גם אם קשה תהיה לשוב להיות בזרועותיך, הדרך בסופה אחיה. אז אשוב ואתן לך את חיי, כל פינה שבליבי את נפשי, שם אתה לי בקרבי. אז אשוב ואתן לך את חיי, כל פינה שבליבי את נפשי, שם אתה לי בקרבי. אתה שם איתי, רבות הדרכים אותה ניסיתי, וכולן הלכתי טועה. רבים הקולות להם הקשבתי, אך כל אחד דיבוריהם. אז אשוב אליך את חיי, כל פינה שבליבי את נפשי, שם אתה לי בקרבי. אז אשוב אליך את חיי, כל פינה שבליבי את נפשי, שם אתה לי בקרבי. אתה שם איתי, אתה שם איתי. אשוב אתן לך את חיי, כל פינה שבליבי את נפשי, שם אתה לי בקרבי. אז אשוב אתן לך את חיי, כל פינה שבליבי את נפשי, שם אתה לי בקרבי.
to you
Hey.
guys.
Hello, guys and gals, infants, toddlers, pets, four-leggeds.
Yep, I think you covered almost everything.
Yep.
We're still here in a pretty hot room. We don't have a fixed air conditioning yet. We're working on that, but we've got some portable ones set up. So
Thank God for portables.
yes, yes, it's very, very hot here again. I don't think it's as hot as maybe where Luis and Aldian might be, but it's pretty hot and humid. So
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, but we're ready. We're so happy to see all you guys.
We're survivors.
Thank you for joining us. We're really sad that Zen Garcia's channel has been temporarily put on hold, but we didn't have Digital Readers Club earlier, and we're hoping they'll be back up in a few days though. They got censored, so if you guys were wondering where everybody was at Digital Readers Club, that's where they were. They weren't anywhere.
You mean they were like the lost tribe?
Yeah, they can't do streams right now. They can't see their channels, so we're just glad that you guys found us, and we welcome all of you here to our class today.
Yep.
Did you have any announcements you need to make?
Uh,
Do you want to keep the Discord guys facing this way? Just hi everybody on Discord. Sorry you can't see us.
Shalom, guys.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Yeah. Well, for now, I guess we're not teaching.
Oh, there we go.
I'll just hold it. Okay.
Right
Yeah.
here. There we go. Hi.
Yeah. We gotta have we should have a robot that actually operates the Discord.
Have like a mechanical arm.
All we need is AI now. Yep. So,
All right, well, should we open in prayer? Noble's got a lot to teach today. It's some great content, and he's been working hard on his message. So we just thank all you guys for joining us, and we're happy to see you all here.
we see how good it is.
And thank you, Marvelly, if you're watching. Marvelly got Noble this new Aloha shirt, 100% silk. So I'm excited
Ooh.
about that. It's really soft.
I am wearing worms. I got worms all over me. Look at that. Well, if you don't know, silk is made from silkworms, right? So.
That's true.
Oh gosh. Okay, let's pray then.
Okay,
Good.
let's open in prayer. Dear Abba, we thank you so much for bringing everyone here to our class to join us in studying your truth, Abba, the way, the truth, and the life, and through the scriptures and manuscripts that you've made available to us. We ask that you bless our entire group of friends that gather here together as an ecclesia, and we thank you so much for each one of them. We ask that you have your hand on all of the technology today, and be
Yes.
with Noble as he shares all that you've led him to share today, Abba. And as we dive deeper into the scriptures, we just thank you for enlightening us with your Ruach.
Yes.
And we're so grateful
Thank
for you, Abba, and for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for your provision, and we just ask all this in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Yeah, one of our dear friends that we go to their house after class, the Pagbas, Alan and Edelyn. Well, Alan's mom passed away about 3 months ago, and now his dad's in the hospital, and so and he's not in good shape, and we haven't even buried the mom yet. The memorial service is in a few weeks, a couple of weeks, I think, and
Noble's doing their memorial service.
I'll be doing the service, but.
Yeah.
Keep Alan in prayer. That's his mom and dad. I mean, his mom is gone now. His dad is on the doorstep. And you know, it's funny. They say sometimes when couples have been together for so long, when one passes away, it doesn't take long for another to follow. And maybe that's the sign of true love that they're just so used to being together that they can't live without one another.
Yeah, they were together since they were teenagers. Like they were a very young couple.
Yeah. So. My heart's been going out to them, my prayers, and just want to invite you all to pray for Alan Pagwa and his dad. Dad's in the hospital, and gosh, well, we'll see what happens. Again, we'll just lift up in God, and God's in control of all things.
That's right.
But yeah,
That's right.
All
So
right.
if any of you have other prayer requests, as always, just put it in the chat, or you could talk to us after, right at the end of class. We'll have a short prayer meeting.
yes.
And so please I'll write down your prayer requests as soon as I see them in the chat, and I look forward to the lesson that Noble's got today.
Well, for all you chatters that love to chat, you know, you didn't get your chat with Zen. Now you're going to be aching to chat with Lisa here. Go for it. Have a good time.
We're listening. We're listening.
I'm not saying you're not.
We're just social a little bit.
I just know that the social status here is really high. You know, and you and Tammy and all the other moderators just make it so much fun. And you know, you got Adrian from Oz. He's just a clown. You know,
Yeah.
he's the comedian of the group. So good. I mean, I'm glad you guys have a good time.
I saw Adrian and Brick there before I moved
Oh, yeah?
up here. So
Oh, all right. Hi,
I look
guys.
forward to see all you guys. Yeah.
Or for everybody that's tuning in, you know, Discord, YouTube, and those that don't chat on YouTube. Well, I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I guess we will get right into it. What are we looking at? Oh, all right. Okay. It's a marathon run.
All right. We'll see you guys in the chat.
Am I centered now? Hey, Isaac likes it when I'm centered. Oh, okay. Guess what? You see me drinking out of my copper mug. And because of popular demand, Lisa has already looked into copper mugs. And I think, did you order already or?
I'm in the process.
Oh, she's in the process
Brick
of.
says he's got his too.
Oh, okay. So, yes, we are going to get some and
We're gonna get our logo.
get our logos put on it. So, yeah, you could actually, yeah. Hey, Benny. Yep, I love copper. Copper's cool. Okay, copper pots, copper pans, you know.
Yep,
Yep, so.
they don't point at me for nothing.
Isaac, you want to set it up for the screen then? And I'm going to start teaching. I'll put it on the chair. You have to angle it again. Oh, we're moving you to Discord. You guys going to be able to see the screen. So not here. Here. Okay. How's the view, Isaac? More this way? Up?
You cut the camera. You tapped it.
Oh, I tapped the camera. Sorry, guys, I cut you off. I'm good at that. I got clumsy fingers. Okay. But, all right, we're on the 13th segment of Iyov, and this is again going to be. We're getting to the end, guys. This is we're in the chapters that leads up to God's response. God finally comes out of hiding, but not yet. This is all Elihu. And you notice that on the screen we have this great portrait of the wrath of Elihu, because he is just a young upstart. He's got a lot of testosterone going on. He's just upset that the elder statesman didn't do a good job, and he feels that he can do a better job. So in his first speech last week, he argued that suffering was one of God's ways of communicating with humans. Chapter 33, verse 14 to 30. And therefore, again, Iyov should recognize that his own experience is not the result of divine hostility so much as divine desire for his education. God wants to teach, and he'll teach through suffering. Isn't that something that we also do in our human upbringing? You know, when we do something wrong, what does our mom and dad do? Back! You know, before you could abuse children. Yeah, divine abuse or parental abuse. It's almost similar to divine hostility in the sense of we're trying to educate our younglings.
Before they called it abuse.
Yeah, of course. Now, you look at a child wrong, they can say, oh, I got abused. Yeah, schools are scary for adults now. It used to be schools were scary for children or students. Now, adults are fearful. The main idea, though, is to present the righteous man in danger of his life, who is redeemed by the intervention of an angel. I mentioned this last week. Elihu believes that only an angel that intervenes on man's behalf will gain God's attention to an answer of a problem, circumstance, or suffering. And this is again what Elihu is about. In order for that to happen, again, Iyov is going to have to what? Confess. Just like the three before him, you know, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Elihu is almost doing the same thing, where he says, Iyov, you got to confess that you are wrong. Chapter 33, verse 27. And you will also have to reconsider your claim of perfect innocence. In other words, how can you be wrong when God is always right? Chapter 33, verse 9. And withdraw your charges against God. Stop taking God to court. He's not going to appear. And yet he knows what you're trying to do. Chapter 33, verses 10 to 11. So if Iyov does all these things, Elihu truly believes that Iyov's suffering is a divine means of communication from God, and that he'll be restored if he does these things. Right. Okay. So here again, we're looking at Elihu, and he is the son of Barachel, the Buzite, of the family of Ram, and he is again now bringing his second speech forth. He's got a lot of speeches. Like, remember, he's a tempestuous young man that has a lot to say. Okay. Elihu continues to develop his theme: can one who hates justice govern? Iyov's fierce and dogmatic stance again on divine justice in the face of the human realities of existence isn't addressed by Elihu, because Elihu he realized that his three friends before him were not successful in that campaign, so he's not going to go that route. Instead of giving up like the other three, where they says, I can't deal with you, Iyov, you're so stubborn and hard-headed, you're worse than a mule. Elihu goes to another path by asking what it means for God to be the supreme governor of the cosmos, and what purpose could a charge of injustice make in reference to such a one. In other words, if God is the almighty governor, if he rules everything and no one can say anything to him, then what is Iyov's claim? Why is he doing such a thing when God does not have to listen, let alone answer and respond? In verse 17, Elihu refers to God as the righteous mighty one. Okay? By this, he means that God governs by dispensing justice, regardless if it is kings and princes or the poor and the unsavory. God will dispense justice without fear and favor. Okay? Verses 18 and 20. Elihu says, mighty rulers fall in a moment and are replaced by others. Most certainly. I mean, they're going to fall sooner or later. They're going to die sooner or later. But this is the testimony of the divine system of justice that keeps all the power holders under perpetual scrutiny. Verses 21 and 22. God again executes instant and public judgment in verses 23 and 22 to 26, and ensures that the people they rule are protected from unjust government. Verse 30. Now, even if God appears to be inactive in his just rulership, behind the scenes, he is in control of the faith of the nations and individuals alike. Verses 29 and 30. This is again a breakdown on how God again operates in Elihu's eyes. Unfortunately, there are a couple flaws in Elihu's argument. First, the evidence of history is against it. I mentioned earlier that kings and princes that govern poorly are taken out right away. Well, sometimes tyrants may fall at an instance, but for the most part they don't. And if you look at the history of Israel, the northern kingdom, and Judah, the southern kingdom, you'll notice that a lot of the evil kings that were ruling the country during their specific reigns were in power for a very long time. Only until they got assassinated, for the most part, or killed in battle, did they cease to exist. Okay, so Elihu's argument on God taking leaders out right away is actually not accurate. Okay. Secondly, he does not allow for himself the possibility that the supreme governor of the cosmos, he himself, God Almighty, is himself an arbitrary tyrant. Now, here's Elihu's reasoning. If the secondary level of the world governors, kings and princes and the like, can include evildoers who should be disposed, who's to say that the very top level, God himself, is not occupied by the ultimate malign force? I mean, maybe he has a power trip also where, he could be wrong. Again, and this is what the commentator is saying in regards to Elihu's argument. When God is silent in the face of evil, pain, and hardship, don't people naturally wonder and question whether God cares or even exists at all? Iyov is at that very point. For a while he doesn't for a moment doubt that God exists. I mean, he does believe in the existence of God. He deeply questions God's integrity. Again, Iyov says, I'm an innocent man. I'm a pious man. Where is the God that I have served all my life? His silence is killing me. His inability or desire not to show himself before me is a question of his integrity. How can anyone depend on a God, especially a person who believes in him, and not be there for them? And so here, again, Iyov is deeply doubting again and unsure. So Elihu, much like the other friends, they talk right past Iyov. They're blurting out things that Iyov should be doing, and Iyov is saying, am I going to again go through this? I went through it with the three before you. Now I'm going to go through it with you, Elihu. Come on, give me a break. All right? In Elihu's third speech, he probes the meaning of justice. He asks whether a charge of injustice against a supreme ruler would make any sense at all. In other words, Iyov, why are you challenging the Almighty? You know that nothing can undo, unseat, or dethrone him. Do you really want to bark up this tree? In his third speech, he treats two further questions about justice. First, whether justice is best understood as what is due to a person, and second, whether justice in God demands that God himself delivers victims of oppression from their suffering. Iyov assumes he is being treated badly by God, and he cries for a justice that will restore him from what has been taken from him. And you know what? A lot of times we're all like that. We want to be restored. If we've lost something, if we're suffering with something, we want to go back to square one. But unfortunately, going backwards is not a thing that time permits. We're all getting older. We're all getting more fragile, weaker, susceptible to the world, to everything that surrounds us. But yet, Iyov still cries out, Lord, give me justice. Elihu, however, believes that to focus on what is due oneself is too narrow the scope of justice, which should rather concern the benefit of others. Here, Elihu is saying, Iyov, stop being so self-centered, one-minded. You've got to think about the social concerns. Look at other people and their sufferings and their hardships and pains and trials, not just yours. Right living has no effect upon God, as Elihu would explain. And he means that God does not know, or what Elihu is saying is that whether God knows, well, God does know, but God does not show himself to care about human behavior because he himself is unchanged by it. In other words, regardless if you're happy or you're crying, if you're moderate or undisturbed, God doesn't really care about your personal circumstances. Here Elihu is saying that it's worth to be found entirely in the effects of effects upon other humans. God is just a carefree, all-powerful being, and that if you are suffering, you have to deal with it. God, again, may or may not adhere to your cries. Iyov does not agree. Right behavior, including justice, again, is what Elihu expects from God. He expects God to have a certain morality, a code of ethics that you would think a supreme being would have. Elihu is painting God differently, and Iyov doesn't agree. In Elihu's view, the problems that are happening to the world and to people is not a theological one, but a humanistic virtue. People, again, are not seeking God enough with the troubles that they are encountering. Iyov's fixation on what is due to him neglects the social dimension of the practice of justice. Iyov is saying, look, God, what more can I do? There is no one else more pious than I am. And again, he's not bragging or boasting, but he's declaring something that he knows that he has done compared to other people around him. For you and I, we might actually say, hey, look, I go and have fellowship with God every day. It's not just going to church once a day, on a Sunday perhaps, or a Saturday, and that's it. The rest of my time is with my family, my work, my hobbies. But for some of us, we're into God's word every day. For some of us, we're praying to him every day, and we feel like that we are very, very, again, relational with our God, almost pious. And here Iyov feels the same way, that he has a very day-to-day, if not hour-to-hour relationship with God, and it's just at a loss of words for his absence. Elihu's second point in this speech is that the unusual pious assumptions that God should and will deliver those who are suffering needs refinement. His argument is that it needs more than mere fact of suffering to call forth the divine mercy, because people are suffering do not necessarily deserve to be released from their suffering. Why is this? Because these people that are suffering and are crying are probably or possibly could be wicked people, and they may be, again, deserving what they've earned. This is going back to retributional doctrine, where if you do something bad, you deserve bad. And nothing different from the first three speakers that spoke to Iyov. But here, there may be innocent enough sufferers who neglect the righteous dimensions of their suffering. They cry out in pain, but unfortunately they do not cry out to God. And Elihu is saying, you're missing the point, guys. Your suffering has to be diverted back to God. Your cries have to go back to the originator. This may be called a kind of pride, which is a wickedness in itself. Because when you think about it, Elihu's arguments is very different from the simple faith of the psalmists. The psalmists say, confess your sins or cry out to God, and he will hear you. God will deliver them just because they are suffering. And this is what the psalmist says. But Elihu says, no, it's more than that. It's deeper than that. They do not stop to consider whether their suffering is deserved. And this is again Elihu's point again, which is going back to retribution theology. Elihu's first point, that justice has to do more with others than with oneself, is what he's been trying to say and share. And yet Elihu does not even approach Iyov on this topic, because if anybody has been a role model for living for others, I should say, it's Iyov. Wasn't he the one that gave a large portion of his wealth to clothe and feed the poor? Did he not have his camels and his flocks and his herds demarcated for them, the poor? Did he not also send out supplies to other cities and nations for their poor as well? So when it comes to thinking of others, I don't think Iyov is there. I mean, he is there. He is one that does not think about himself, but he thinks of others first and foremost. And now he's in the boat where he needs someone to think of him. But who can he ask? There is no other Iyovs out there for him other than God the Almighty. So Iyov has again lived his life for others, for his family, community, and other people outside his own town. In the second place, Iyov has certainly been treated unjustly. Even if the Lord Almighty will not presently give him justice, Iyov cries out continually. He has not given up on his God, for that is his Redeemer. Elihu again now considers that God will not deliver sufferers if they happen to be proud and wicked, or even just negligent. This is partly appropriate for Iyov and partly not. Iyov is certainly not in the camp of those who merely cry out in pain and don't cry out to God, for his whole response to his suffering has been to approach God with it as its inevitable cause. Again, it's like beating the drum over and over. Iyov knows that his God exists and that he cannot get any other satisfaction than from God himself. Iyov, again, on the other hand, has also been far less respectful towards God than those who merely neglect to say, "Where is God my maker?" If they are not answered, how much less, says Elihu, may Iyov expect to be when he complains that his case is unforgivably delayed. Iyov is just at a loss. He has nowhere else to go. But Elihu doesn't make it easy also for him because of all the points that he's bringing up. And it's sad for you if you're suffering also and there's an Elihu in your camp that's saying that you must have done something wrong. We can only pray for you and pray that God will respond soon. So with that, the second and third speeches of Elihu, I'm going to conclude here, and we'll continue again next time. Just know that that Iyov will be justified soon. Elihu has to go and make his points known. And I believe that this is a lesson for all of us to understand that people have different angles and perspectives on why we may be suffering, on why we may be, again, not hearing from God. And whatever the response, whatever the angle of attack, know that God is present. He is there. Just know that He is processing and that He is walking with you. So if you are there, if you are in a Iyov situation, be patient. Trust in Him. He will see you through. All right? So with that, I'm going to stop here. Isaac, if you want to just give me a short break, I'll get our next lesson up to par. And this is going to be a long one. I hope you guys got your sleep. I hope you didn't eat too much because you might fall asleep. I don't know, maybe you're not.
Everyone's talking about drinking coffee right now. A lot of people are Eastern time today.
Oh, wow. All right, you coffee drinkers. We'll see you shortly.
As a child growing up here on the beautiful island of Oahu, I never realized what the Most High would have in store for me. I grew up in a family of educators and graduated at a very young age, pursuing education in every aspect. I was so focused on earning several college degrees that I wasn't paying attention to my health or personal life. And it wasn't until I had been through several surgeries and was in extreme pain that I began to pay attention to my body. I went to so many doctors and medical professionals trying to figure out what was wrong with me. So about 10 years ago, I started writing a book detailing my experiences and hoping that it will help other women and others who are in chronic pain, just so they don't have to go through all the steps and many years that I did and down the trail of prescription medication. I highly recommend this book for anyone who is taking care of someone that's in pain or who has issues with chronic pain themselves or who has gone through an abusive relationship that has contributed to their pain. I hope that by sharing my story that others are encouraged to seek the Most High first and that it is much better to trust in Him than to put your faith in man. Through my experience, I learned that God uses whatever it takes to bring us and to draw us back to Him, and I'm truly grateful for that.
All right.
It's a nice picture.
Yes, it is. Hi guys on YouTube channel. Just talking to the Discord people. Luis, Aldeon. Just talking about the picture that's on the screen. Beautiful picture. Again, I'm just blessed to be able to find resources like this to enhance the teaching. Here we are again, the Kokavim of Yeshua, or otherwise known as the stars of Jesus. And when I say the stars of Jesus, I'm not talking about celebrities. I am talking about literally the stars in the Rakia up in the heavens, also known as divine beings. One of the job descriptions of a divine being is an angel, which is a messenger. Okay. So this is the third installment. And as we're, again, slowly pecking away at this, I hope you guys find this very interesting. A lot of sources, and here we go. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. This is Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. You have your mic, Lisa, in case you can get you to read also. The simple teaching in Matthew's gospel states that the Magi, Oriental astrologers, came from the eastern part of the world to pay homage to the newborn King of the Jews and to present to him the customary gifts befitting a new king. The New Testament account doesn't mean that the author of the Matthean gospel was endorsing the principles of astrology because they are biblical verses condemning. There are biblical verses condemning.
It auto-corrected you.
Yeah, it auto-corrected me. It's religious practice of Matthew, which Matthew was undoubtedly aware of. In other words, Matthew knew that Zoroastrianism, astrology, all those teachings were out there. But he wasn't endorsing it because there is also a biblical astrology to understand as well. And he wanted to make sure that his audience understood that what was happening in the heavens above was also for the people below. We are witnesses to God's ever growing expanse and how he communicates himself to us, his creation. The recording of this account makes it clear that Matthew did not view these magi as quacks or charlatans, even though there were some magi that were quacks and charlatans in the New Testament, in the book of Acts. Okay, but when the magi entered Yerushalayim, also known as Jerusalem, with their announcement that the Kokav, the star of the newborn Jewish king, had been seen, King Herod the Great, was troubled, and all Yerushalayim with him. Since the Magi were professional astronomers as well as astrologers, the mention of their visit was Matthew's way of securing the testimony of the top scientific authorities to authenticate the royal birth of Yeshua. Again, Matthew just wanted to make sure that everybody in his time understood that the top star readers were actually confirming the Messiah's soon-to-be birth. These Oriental astrologers came from the east, the Far East, bearing rich gifts for the newborn king. Herod the Great and all of Yerushalayim would hardly have been troubled by what they considered impostors. But if the wise men had come from the courts of the Parthian kings who employed them in the religious affairs of their government, or from the respected Magian colleges of the East, then that would have been a different matter in view of Herod and the Jewish authorities in Yerushalayim. In order to gain an audience with a king, let alone Herod the king, and for him to have members of the Sanhedrin, again, this is the Supreme Court of the Jews, to hear the interpretations of these magi. Again, it must show that they were held in high esteem by the people. In their deportment, it was customary for their magi to dress in magnificent priestly attire to indicate their professional status. In presenting themselves before royalty, the historical records reflect that the magi did this with pomp and circumstance. They were decked out. They looked royal, they were royal, and they were invited by the royals. Okay? In traveling on official business in areas where their influence was felt, it was normal for the priestly magi to proceed in a processional mode with varying ranks of them appropriately positioned in the caravan. And you have to understand, again, it's much like the Asian or Oriental customs of the Far East. Again, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, even Filipinos, that the head of the household, the male, would walk first. The wife would follow behind him, and then the children. And here, the magi, as they were traveling in their caravans, the highest ranking magi would be up front, and those that, again, succeeded him would come after. And this is how, again, they traveled, and people knew this. In traveling on official business in areas where their influence was felt, again, as they traveled in their caravans, this must have been the manner in which they approached the city of Jerusalem to present their gifts to the newborn king of the Jews. This would testify for the respectful attitude of Herod and the Jewish authorities to them. I mean, they welcomed them with open arms and invited them into their courts. It is important to realize that this type of travel for respected Magian priests is not a fantasy story. They traveled in majestic style. In Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum's writings, Ariel Ministries, a manuscript, again, MBS 20M, it says here, Matthew never says that these men were kings. Again, Dr. Fruchtenbaum argues that they were just wise men. We know for certain that these were not kings because the specific title they were given in the Greek text is magoi for singular or magi for plural, which means wise men, or more specifically, astrologers. What we have in the Matthew account are an unknown number of astrologers from the East. In the Bible, the East is always the area of Mesopotamia, so there are at least 2 astrologers from Babylon, and this is again Dr. Fruchtenbaum's stance. But in the book, The Search for King Solomon's Treasure, The Lost Isles of Gold and the Garden of Eden, author Timothy Schwab of the God Culture writes, this passage also addresses the number of wise men, wise kings, yes, kings, he emphasizes, who came after Messiah's birth. With the list provided in David's prophecy in Psalm 72, we know that there were more than 3 kings, however. This is again in his book, pages 239 to 40. Lisa, do you mind reading? Soon, hang on. Oh no, right here. This is it, right here. This is Psalm 72.
Okay, verse 8. May he have dominion from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. May desert tribes bow down before him, and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the coastlands render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations serve him. Long may he live. May gold of Sheba be given to him. May prayer be made for him continually, and blessings invoked for him all the day.
Thank you, Annie. You might want to comment on this too. So, with the God culture, if you were to watch their YouTube teachings, one of the big things that Tim and his wife Anna proclaim is that the kings of Tarshish and of the coastlands actually fall in the area east of Asia, Asia Minor, in fact. And when they speak of the coastlands, it's actually speaking of the isles, right?
Yeah, the islands of the east.
The islands of the east.
The Far East.
And where are these islands, Lisa?
And these are in the Philippines. And one of the reasons why I think that they would have said there was only 3 kings is because there's 3 major areas in the 7,500 island archipelago of the Philippines. There's the north, which was called Ophir. We call it Luzon today. There's the central area, which is Visayas, and that's where Shiba or Cebu is located, the central region. And then there's the south of Mindanao, and
Yeah.
that's Tarshish.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, that's the next part. Oh.
Yes. My wife is on target with me. We are, again,
So when you're asking where did the Queen of Sheba come from, it's not Ethiopia, although there may have been a queen that came from Ethiopia that had goat feet, as described in the Keber Nagast. It wasn't the same queen that brought the gold, incense, and myrrh from Sheba or Cebu.
I actually think that Timothy says that he believes that there were maybe at least 6 magi, if not more. The Parthians, when they were inviting the magi to consult with them, they always came in a dozen magi. So again, a lot of times people will think there were only 3 because there were 3 different gifts. That is a very eisegetical perspective, thinking, oh yeah, 3 presents, got to be 3 kings. No, you're going to have 12 magi bringing 3 distinct gifts, and all of them bringing, what was very important for blessing newborn or newly enthroned and established kings.
Also, too, knowing the culture of the Philippines, the Filipinos, when they travel, they don't just travel with like 3 people. They like bring the whole 9 yards, the whole ohana, the whole family. So there could have been hundreds of them. And it's kind of a deception, too, with, the pictures you see of the wise men on the camels. I'm sure that maybe they had to do rent a camel once they got to the port,
Uber camel.
Uber camel, yeah.
Right.
But most of their trip would have been on the sea because there was a fleet of ships, as described in the story of Jonah,
Yeah.
where he was trying to get to Tarshish. And because the ports were broken up at Ezion Geber, which would have been much closer to travel in the days of Solomon, in the days of Jehoshaphat, it describes in 2 Kings that those ports were broken up. And so the kings would have had to go all the way from the Philippines, traveling west around Africa, and then in through Gibraltar into the Mediterranean, and then would have ported at Haifa. And from there, they could have done Uber camel, or that's maybe where you get the symbology with the camels.
Right. Yeah, and again, so many possibilities. But as Timothy Schwab writes, ancient Ophir was divided into 3 territories, just as it is today. Ophir as Luzon, Sheva as Visayas with Siba and Sabah, and thirdly, Tarshish as Mindanao, all of this located in the Philippines. Thus, the commentaries claiming this theologian was unaware there were more than 3 kings are likely lacking context, as well as those claiming that the Bible never defines these as kings, when David most certainly did. Because in Psalm 72, David calls them kings. So, again, as Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum was one of my professors in seminary, I don't agree with everything that he teaches. And then again, with even Timothy and the God culture, I like a lot of his teaching, but I don't agree with everything he teaches. And again, I have even more information to share. But Lisa, you want to say something?
Speaking of Dr. Fruchtenbaum, we traveled with him on a 6-week educational tour to Israel, where he's from. He lives in the U.S. now, but on that tour, there was only about 23 of us, and so we got to know him on a more personal basis. And when we were walking through the streets of Jerusalem, I was asking him a few questions and asking him, so are the Hebrews and Jews the same people? And he just said, no, they're totally 2 different groups of people. The Jews that live in Israel now are different than Hebrews. And I said, well, where would you think the original Hebrews would come from? And he just looked at me right in the eye and he said, research the Philippines. And I was like, what? Because I had no idea back then. I thought maybe he was joking around. But then when I finally did see the videos from the God culture, everything started to make sense. So just that little thing. So he knew.
Thank you, Annie. There's more evidence that the Magi were kings, and it comes from the book of Dr. Ernest Martin, the Star of Bethlehem, the star that astonished the world. In it he writes, the account recorded by Matthew fits well with other journeys of the priestly magi when they were presented to kings or emperors. When Tiridates of the Order of the Magi was made king over Armenia by the Emperor Nero, the new Magian king went to Rome with other magi to present gifts to Nero. A great deal of ceremony was associated with this visit. So this, again, must have been the case with the magi who came to Herod. He would have given them a proper ceremonial protocol. This is why all Jerusalem knew of their coming and why members of the Sanhedrin were summoned to hear their interpretations on the star which they had seen. Dr. Fruchtenbaum writes, suddenly astrologers arrive in Jerusalem asking the question, where is he that is born king of the Jews? Did they gain this knowledge through astrology? This incident raises a number of questions. First, how did these men know anything about the birth of a Jewish king? And secondly, even knowing about the birth of a Jewish king, why would Babylonian astrologers want to come and worship other Jewish kings? Why would they want to worship this particular king? Good questions. Again, the question is, how did the wise men know? Well, Dr. Fruchtenbaum continues. First of all, let's focus our attention on the issue of the star. To be with, that this was no ordinary star is evident by the actions of which this star took. The star is referred to as his star, or the King of the Jews star, in a way that other stars simply cannot be. Dr. Fruchtenbaum continues and writes, this star appears and disappears. This star moves from east to west. This star moves from north to south. This star hovers over one single house in Bethlehem and points to where the Messiah is. Any literal star as we know it that would hover over only one house in Bethlehem would destroy this entire planet. It is very evident that this cannot be a literal star. The Greek word for star simply means radiance or brilliance. By this star coming in the form of a light, what we actually have here is the appearance of the Shekinah glory rather than the astrologer's star. The Shekinah glory is the visible manifestation of God's presence. Whenever God became visible in the Old Testament, that is what is referred to as the Shekinah glory. In most cases, the Shekinah glory came in the form of a light, fire, cloud, or some combination of the three things. Over in Babylon, a light, a brilliance, a radiance appears over the area that may look like a star from a distance, and yet has actions which no star can do or does do. What these wise men actually saw was the Shekinah glory. And when they saw this glory, this unusual brilliance, they deduced that it was a signal that the King of the Jews, the Messiah, had finally been born. Now, this is my commentary concerning Dr. Fruchtenbaum's manuscript. The issue of the star is the first to elaborate on. Unfortunately, Dr. Fruchtenbaum is not a flat earther. He does not hold to that, and I don't think he ever will. Anything is possible, but unfortunately, Dr. Fruchtenbaum, again, holds to NASA's so-called scientific claims and doesn't believe stars and planets are divine beings. The translation of the Hebrew kokav, meaning star, or the Greek aster, meaning star, has a mystery attached to it. This mystery is found in Revelation chapter 1, verse 20. As for the mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. Addressing the issue of the star moving north, south, east, and west, while also hovering over one specific spot and disappearing and reappearing. In rereading the Matthew 2 account, I cannot find the star moving north, south, east, nor west, let alone disappearing or reappearing. The star did, however, stand over where the child was, but even that is somewhat vague. Was the star over the toddler? Was it over the house? Over the town? Scripture is not clear, but in all respect, the Magi did discover the child in Bethlehem. But here, Dr. Ernest Martin shares something that you might find interesting. Regulus is the chief star in the constellation of Leo, the lion. And because it lay practically on the path of the sun, it was reckoned as a royal star. Jupiter and Regulus came into juxtaposition on September 14, 3 BCE, and as viewed from Earth, they were only 0.33 degrees from each other. In other words, they were really close. Here was the king planet, Jupiter, now coming into contact with the king star, Regulus, in the royal constellation, Leo the lion. If viewed in isolation to other astronomical occurrences, this single event may not have been significant to astrologers. But combined with the other celestial displays of 3 to 2 BCE, it soon took on great symbolic meaning. This is because this first conjunction began a series of 3 meetings of Jupiter and Regulus that occurred in a precise sequential pattern. Note what happened. And mind you, if you didn't hear what I said or read what I just read, a series of 3 meetings of Jupiter and Regulus. Okay? Jupiter first united with Regulus and then continued on its normal course in the heavens. You have to understand that, again, Jupiter is called a planet. A planet is also known as a wandering star. Again, not behaving in the way stars normally behave, fixed to where the Lord puts them. So as Jupiter is, again, marching through the heavens, it meets up with Regulus. Okay? On December 1st, 3 BCE, Jupiter all of a sudden stops its motion through the fixed stars and begins its annual retrogression. What is this retrogression? In other words, Jupiter is going down this path. He passes Regulus and goes on, and a few months later he stops. And now Jupiter actually turns back and heads back towards Regulus, because Regulus is a fixed star. In doing so, it once again headed towards the star Regulus, and on February 17th, 2 BCE, the two were reunited, 0.85 degrees apart. Jupiter continued its motion, still again in retrogression, going backwards, for another 40 days, and then it reverted to its normal motion through the stars. In other words, it stopped a second time and says, okay, let's go back to the first course I was going through in the first place. Now, for some of you that have never heard of that before, look it up. Interesting how Jupiter does a circle and then comes back. Remarkably, this movement placed Jupiter again into a third conjunction with Regulus on May 8th, 2 BC. And they were then 0.72 degrees from each other. The visible effect of these 3 conjunctions of Jupiter, the king planet, with Regulus, the king star, would have shown Jupiter making a circling effect over and around Regulus. Jupiter was homing in on Regulus and pointing out the significance of the king star as it related to the king planet. This circular movement of Jupiter, the king planet, over Regulus, the king star, would have signaled to astrologers that a great king was then destined to appear. The motion effect of Jupiter circling over Regulus brings up a most important astrological observation. As mentioned earlier, the zero line for beginning and ending the 360 degree of the zodiac was reckoned by some astrologers as existing between Cancer and Leo. In other words, what's being said is that when you look at the zodiac, it's a 360 degree circle, and and its pieces is chopped up by those, again, constellations that we know in the zodiac. And every new year begins with Leo, and the year ends with Cancer, the crab. Okay. This means that this motion effect shown by Jupiter circling around Regulus like a crown over the star was happening in the heavens just east of the 0-degree line for astrological measurements. It occurred at the beginning section of the astrological zodiac in view of some Gentile astrologers. This interpretation is similar to that adopted by Moses in his arrangement of the armies of Israel in the fashion of the zodiac around the tabernacle in the wilderness. In other words, when the tabernacle was made, and as they were going from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land, the tabernacle would be centered in the middle, and around the tabernacle would be the 12 tribes of Israel, protecting the tabernacle, defending the tabernacle. And this is again that biblical zodiac designed by Moshe. And this design by Moshe also began with the royal sign of Leo. Leo, again, the lion, is the beginning of the calendar year. But its 0-degree line was located in the middle of the constellation, not at its beginning. Strange. Why it would begin in the middle of Leo? But whatever the case, these indications would surely have shown to the people of that era that a great king or ruler was then being introduced to the world. Now I got on the display the constellations, a circle of them. You notice where Leo is at, okay? To the right of Leo is the crab, okay? And this is going counterclockwise, just because this is the way it was drawn up. But the crab is pretty much represents July. Leo is July, August, okay? Notice what's right after Leo. Virgo, the Virgin. Keep in mind, okay? This is done for a reason. But the two red lines right in the middle of Leo represents Moshe's interpretation of how the biblical astrology works, and that it begins in the middle of Leo. Who was the greatest ruler then in existence? It was Augustus Caesar, Emperor of Rome. When were these celestial events happening? Note the chronological significance. They coincided with the 25th year of Augustus's elevation to supreme power over the Romans, the 750th priestly anniversary of the founding of Rome, and the exact year the people and the Senate of Rome gave Augustus his supreme title. You remember I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. Pater Patriae, the father of the country. To those in Rome, it seemed like heaven itself was giving approval for the emperorship of Augustus, and that the government of Rome had the divine right to world sovereignty. Hardly a person in Rome would have disputed that interpretation, and most people would have agreed that the astronomical evidence in support of it was overwhelming. But in another part of the world, those outstanding astronomical signs were viewed in a different way. As an example of this, some magi from the Eastern world were also watching these wonderful celestial phenomena, denoting the advent of royalty. These magi decided to skip Rome and its festivities and celebrations, and instead they headed in the direction of Jerusalem and Judea, looking for this very special child whom they considered to be a very important newborn king of the Jews. Dr. Ernest Martin again concludes that not all the magi were following what the Romans were seeing. They had their own agenda and understanding of what the heavens were declaring. Here, Dr. Fruchtenbaum continues by saying, having determined that this star was not a literal star, but the Shekinah glory, still does not answer all the questions. The one question still is, how did the wise men know anything about the birth of a Jewish king? For the answer to this question, we must look at the Old Testament. And to begin with, we must note that the only place in the entire Old Testament that dates the Messiah's coming is the famous 77s, or 70 weeks of Daniel, chapter 9, verses 24 to 27. Besides this, the book of Daniel was not written in Israel, but in the city of Babylon, and much of it was written in Aramaic, the language of the Babylonian Empire. So it was that, in the city of Babylon, a book was written which prophesied when the Messiah would come. Dr. Fruchtenbaum also depends heavily on Judaism's alternate definition of glory, called the Shekinah glory. You see, it's used in rabbinic literature to signify God's presence. In reaction to Hellenism and paganism, Judaism attempted on the one hand to preserve the biblical notion of God's presence, while on the other hand emphasizing the vast gulf between deity and mankind. Although the word Shekinah doesn't occur in the Bible, the root or shorish, shin, kaf, and nun occurs in the verb to dwell, and in the noun mishkan. And for some of you that know what mishkan is in Hebrew, it's the tabernacle or the dwelling place. Okay, Shekinah also appears either as a pillar of cloud, a pillar of fire, or as light, as I mentioned before. But that's not all. Daniel was also associated with Babylonian astrologers. And if you look into Daniel chapter 1, verses 19 to 20, chapter 2, verses 12 to 13, verses 47, and chapter 4, verse 7 to 9, and chapter 5, verses 11 to 12, you will find that Daniel again was in Babylon, relating to the astrologers of Babylon. Now, Nebuchadnezzar, also known as Nebuchadnezzar, not having much spiritual discernment, did not realize that the source of Daniel's ability was not the stars of the heavens, but the God of heaven. Nevertheless, Nebuchadnezzar made Daniel the head of all the astrologers of Babylon. It was in the environment and in this company that Daniel penned his book, revealing the time of Messiah's coming. A day came when Daniel was able to save the lives of all the Babylonian astrologers. Nebuchadnezzar had an unusual dream, and when the astrologers were unable to interpret this dream, or his dream, he sentenced every one of them to execution. How is that for being a leader? You don't perform, you die. Among those arrested, Daniel and his three friends. Do you know what his three friends' names are? And yes, if you can say it in Babylonian, it's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But I'm teaching Hebrew, so here he is in Hebrew. Can you read that? My Hebrew students? Oh, you got the English right there. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Azariah, actually. Again, notice Yah, El, and Yah, gods of name. God's name is always in Hebrew names.
Azariah, that's Clark's granddaughter.
Oh, yeah. Azariah. But in Hebrew, Azariah. So, because from the viewpoint of the Babylonians, these four Hebrews were part of the Babylonian school of astrology, and therefore they too had to be executed. A day came when Daniel was able to save the lives of all the Babylonian astrologers. Nebuchadnezzar, again, with his very unusual dream, were all unable to interpret this dream. He sentenced every one of them to execution, and then arrested Daniel and his three friends. Again, I guess that's a rewrite. I'm sorry. Let me move on. But Daniel requested and received an audience with the king, and after the audience, Daniel did interpret King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And by interpreting the dream, he saved the lives of all the other astrologers. In fact, this is the way he became the head of the Babylonian school of astrology. I'm sure, again, not all of the astrologers were happy that he got promoted to the top dog position, but then again, for those that were very grateful to be alive, they, I'm sure, wanted to know and learn more about the God of Daniel. There's little doubt that he was able to lead many of them to a saving knowledge of God, the God of Israel. So a line of Babylonian astrologers from generation to generation worshiped the true God, and having Daniel's prophecy, looked forward to the coming of the King of the Jews. From the book of Daniel, we can conclude that Babylonian astrologers did know about what time the Messiah was to be born. However, the book of Daniel says nothing about the star that would in some way announce the Messiah's birth. So how then did the astrologers know anything about a star? For this question, we must go back even earlier in the Old Testament to the prophecies of Balaam, who was hired by the king of Moab to curse the Jews. 4 times he tried to curse them, but each time God took over his mouth, and instead of cursing the Jews, he ended up blessing them. In the course of blessing the Jews, he came forth with 4 key messianic prophecies. And one of the prophecies is found in Bamidbar, Numbers 24:17. Lisa, you want to read that?
Yes, Numbers 24:17. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. A scepter shall rise out of Israel.
Thank you, babe. Dr. Fruchtenbaum adds that Balaam, much to his own reluctance and regret, was forced by God to prophesy of the coming of the Jewish Messiah. And he related that to a star. Again, Dr. Fruchtenbaum believes that this is not a literal star. I disagree. But because it then says concerning the star, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. The star and the scepter are one and the same. Remember that the term scepter is a symbol of royalty or kingship. This star would rise out of Jacob. This star is a king. Furthermore, Balaam's occupation was that of astrology. Even more significant was the fact that he came from the city of Pethor, a city on the banks of the Euphrates River in Babylonia. Bamidbar 22:5, Devarim 23:4. You can search it and check it out yourself. So we have a double Babylonian connection here. We have, of course, the book of Daniel, which sealed out how many years would transpire before the birth of the King of the Jews. And then we have the prophecy of Balaam concerning the star, the scepter. And again, Balaam was part of this Babylonian school of astrology. Hence, the revelation of a star in relation to Messiah's birth came by way of a Babylonian astrologer who, no doubt, passed the information down to his colleagues. Centuries later, Daniel was able to expound to the Babylonian astrologers as to the time the star of Yaakov would come. And I just want to elaborate that a star, also known as a divine being, is not royal in any chance. But Balaam's suggestion that, or I should say passage that's in Numbers, the Midvar 24:17 says the star is also a scepter. And the scepter shows that this divine being is not just any old divine being, but a royal divine being. A divine being that only God himself has claim to. And this is God in the second person. So it's exciting to see how this is forming, again, a very astronomical and astrological story behind who the King of the Jews is and how he's coming. So that concludes my lesson on this third installment. How are we doing on time? Oh, not too bad. I hope you found this very interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of great comments in the chat. Like, they're tracking with you. Tommy Kiefer was right there with you all the way. He mentioned all the different alignments of the stars before you even started talking about it. So
Tommy and I are in alignment. Right on, buddy. Again, I agree with Dr. Fruchtenbaum, with Tim, and with Dr. Ernest
Martin.
But I don't agree with everything. I mean, and I'm sure you feel that way even with me. There are some things I always share and teach that you agree with, and some things that you don't. But that's the nature, right, of us, that we want to see proof, we want to see evidence, we want to see scriptural backing. Again, Tim, for example, says that the Magi were strictly from the Philippines. But I have to disagree, because even after the 10 tribes were exiled, they were actually given respite to go back home or find new homes. And the 10 tribes, again, many of them moved eastward and set a precedence for people of Israel going all over the world. So when the exile of Judah happened later on in history, and then when they were pardoned and given permission to go back home or to go find a home elsewhere, I'm sure many of them, the Persians, I have to admit, took over the Babylonians. So many of the Babylonian astrologers might have been, again, given this freedom to move where they chose to go. And if many of the so-called Jews from the Southern Kingdom went eastward to the Far East, who knows? I'm thinking that many of those Babylonian astrologers, the Magi, went eastward as well and could have ended up in Ophir. Again, nothing's implausible, impossible with God. We don't know the history until we come across resources, books and scrolls that share testimonies about such things. But until we come across them, we can only, again, imagine and wonder what it was like when God was moving his people around the world. Lisa? Anything?
No, just a lot of great comments. They're saying that really good information. They're thank you for the spiritual meat, says Tree Mistress.
This question.
There's a question.
Which seminary did Dr. Fruchtenbaum?
I put that
He went to.
You met him at the international.
He attended New York Theological Seminary, and that was his upbringing. And then he also, I think, went to Hebrew University.
He was wondering where you met him at. Where was?
Where
he
did I meet
teaching?
him?
Yeah, where was he?
Oh,
teaching at?
He came over here
To the international.
to the seminary here in Hawaii, and I met him there, and got to know him there.
He graduated from Hebrew University and then Dallas Theological Seminary, I think, right?
He taught at Dallas
He taught at
Theological
Dallas.
Seminary, and but he got his doctorate at New York, in New York.
But he also, I remember when he came, he always went to Kauai too. He had a timeshare there or something.
Yeah. Maybe Tom Kiefer met him there. Who knows?
Tommy said he used to work out at Nuuanu Gym.
Yeah. So again, just some of the roots, my teachings and learnings from professors and people around. Again, learning never stops, people. Just because you graduated from seminary doesn't mean you stop learning. And I know that most of you are avid learners and continuing in your education, just like Lisa, Isaac, and myself are. And so again, I can only hope and pray that you continue to do so. Keep putting oil in your lamps, preparing for the day when Yeshua comes back. And again, I just want to encourage that. Any other questions or comments? Shoot it to Isaac and Lisa. But I'm going to take a quick break to teach Hebrew. And so, see you in a little bit.
I'll see you after the break.
Shalom. Hello again. Yep, I didn't change shirt. I wasn't sweating. I got a nice AC unit blowing on my spine, so I'm very cold right now.
You are?
But it feels good. Better than being hot. But again, here's the third segment of our Hebrew Hawaiian class, the biblical Hebrew class. And this is going to be short because I put a lot of time into the Kokavim of Yeshua. And unfortunately, I only got 24 hours a day like you do and 7 days a week. So here we go with our Hebrew class. Since we only got about 35 minutes left. Shabbat Shalom. Again, this is Rosh Chodesh, right? I think, Lisa?
I'm not sure. I looked at Zen's calendar. I'm a little confused because it's a few days between World's Last Chance and Zen's calendar. So
Okay.
it's either today or tomorrow. I think Rosh
Okay.
Chodesh.
Yeah.
But and Shabbat. We're doing Shabbat
Yeah.
today too.
Well, Rosh Chodesh is the new moon. So go out there, look for it because you won't find it. It's supposed to be black. That's what the new moon means. But if you see a sliver, then that I think is how some people consider the conjunction or when the actual day begins or the month begins. And when Rosh Chodesh begins, then know this, that the following week, on that whatever day it falls on, is Shabbat. And that's how Shabbat is actually considered when you base it upon the lunar solar calendar. Not the Gregorian calendar, what we have grown up to learn and know and live by, because what is today? Saturday. Saturday, isn't that a pagan god's name? Saturn Day, right? Again,
Saturn. And
the
then, of
evil
course,
one promoted
Sunday.
this and is instilling it and is still pushing it through. So now we have to live by two calendars. One, so we can relate with the world, which is the Gregorian calendar, but one which we worship God by, which is again the lunar solar calendar. And this is again, it goes by the Rosh Chodesh and the Shabbats that follow on the same course. And so with that, again, I hope that you would research that more and consider it and strike up a conversation with us. You may agree, may disagree. It does matter because we want to be on the same page. And, again, I'm not going to say that everything I teach is correct. I like to believe it is, but I'm human. I am flawed like anybody else. But I am also willing to learn. And if you have an argument that again can convince me otherwise, then guess what? I'm in your camp. All right. But with Hebrew, again, the way I teach it's based from the book, Beginning Biblical Hebrew. And guess what? You notice the red screen is a sign of blood and torture, which means there's a test.
They can all say, "Oh lo."
Oh no.
Oh, no.
All right, guys. Okay, what is this word here? And I again want to point out to you that we only have 6 new vocabulary words, so it's going to be easy. But what is this word here? Nefesh. Thank you, Johnson. You said that very well. Nefesh. Nefesh. Notice the accent on the first syllable. What does nefesh mean?
Soul.
Soul. Very good. And that's one of, I believe, 5 answers.
Wow.
But soul is the first. Soul, it could also mean life, person, neck, or throat. Again, if a lion was to rip your throat out, your life ends, your soul ends. Your soul leaves your body. So I guess neck and throat kind of have this understanding that the life of a person is the nefesh. Okay? All right. What's the next word here?
Avi.
Navo. Navoy.
No, it's a hirek yod. Hirek yod is a long I, so it's going to be navi, because the bet is a V sound. There's no dagesh lene inside of the bet, so B becomes V as victory with an I at the ending, a long I. So navi, navi. So what does navi mean?
Navi.
Navi. Anybody remember what navi means?
Like the sages or the wise ones?
No. Oh, I heard Luis. Yep, Luis, correct. And it's not the Avatar movie. No, it is prophet.
A prophet.
Prophet. Navi is prophet. Okay. So keep that in mind.
Prophets.
All right, let's look at the next word. Come on, Hebrew students.
Got a little clear. Sophir.
Sefer.
Sefer. Sefer.
Sefer.
Yep.
Book.
They're both E. Oh, very good. They're both E vowels, and the root consonant, the pei that's in the middle, you got samek, then you got a pei. The pei does not have a dagesh lene, so the P is sounded like an F. So sefer, and R is resh is R. So you said it correctly, and you also answered it, Aldion. Thank you.
Tammy got it right.
And Tammy, you too, you got it right. Book, scroll or document. Very good, guys. Man, I'm going to try to pull some harder ones on you guys. But let's go to the last three words, okay? Here, this is going to be challenging. What is this word?
Seats.
Nope.
Ayin.
Ayin.
Foot. Moving the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You okay?
It's a new Sophie.
Sorry, Discorders. I put my foot on the prop that you guys were watching the camera by. So that was not an earthquake. That was me. Okay, ayin.
Ayin.
Ayin. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Luis. What does ayin mean?
I.
Your eyes.
Your eyes. Eye. It also means spring. Whether that means spring, the jump in your step, or the spring, the season. That's a very good question, But I know it means I, and you also have the dual form. Remember the dual form? It means, and this is again, anaim, I naim. Keep in mind that when you ask or describe a person, you're going to say that person has two eyes, okay? Unless he loses one or is a cyclops. This is again the dual form for ayin, which means eye, okay? Very good. Look at this next word right here. Very simple. Ayin is silent. Ir. Very good. And what does ir mean?
A city.
City. Luis, he knows his Hebrew. It means city. Also could mean town. City is more common, but again, don't be close to that. Again, always know that there's options in defining a word, and this is nothing unusual with Hebrew. Look at the irregular. Okay, city ir is a feminine noun, but when you pluralize it, it has a masculine ending. One of those irregular plurals again. So instead of irot, which would be feminine pluralizing, it's arim, which is your feminine noun with a masculine ending, plural ending. Just be flexible, guys. Go with the flow. Okay, last word.
Saba.
Very good.
Saba.
Very good. Now, Aldion, I think you've said that even better than Luis. No, I'm only kidding, Luis. But what does Sava mean?
The armies.
Army. Host.
Ooh.
Remember, Sabaoth is a plural.
Oh, yeah, Sabaoth.
Armies, or the host, Sabaoth, Yehvah, or Adonai, the Lord, the Lord's host, the Lord's army. But also it can mean service as well, because going into service means you're joining the army. Host is just another term, again, of who occupies the battleground. And in heaven, it's Yehvah's Sabaoth. It's the host of the Lord. All right? Very good, guys. That was a good job on our vocabulary words. Now I'm going to teach a little beginning Hebrew and go right into the advanced Hebrew, since I didn't get to teach that last week. We were talking about pluralization of nouns. We're on the noun chapter. And here we're going to be talking about geminate nouns. Okay? A geminate noun appear to have only two root consonants, as in this word. Look at this. Ayin, patak, and mem sufit. It's the consonants are only two, and it's pronounced am. You could say am like in English, but it's not. It's am. And am means people. Okay? Actually, though, geminate nouns originally had three consonants. Did you know that? And the three consonants, again, is the original way it was, but then along the course of time, people shorten it. And the example would be the word for people, originally spelled okay, that's ayin, mem, and mem sufit. In other words, reverse apostrophe, m and m. Okay, no vowels underneath there, but if you put vowels underneath there, it would be amim or am. That is how it's originally spelled. Well, time and the way people speak, sometimes they just shorten it. They say, let's take out the last m. Let's just say am. Okay, that works. So there are still a few geminate nouns in biblical Hebrew that occasionally preserve both geminate consonants, such as this word here, levav. Levav is heart, but you could also call it lev for short. Lev also means heart. So understanding that, don't again get bent out of shape. Geminate, much like the consonant, the Gemini, the twins, this is where we get this term where two consonants again come into play. All right, and two of those consonants in the original, the twins, one drops out, and that's why you're left with just two consonants. What makes this noun class unique is that the last two consonants of the original stem are identical. The term geminate comes from the Latin Gemini, meaning twins. I just shared that with you. Most geminate nouns, however, only one geminate consonant appears in the spelling of the singular form. When nouns of this type are pluralized, the consonant that originally appeared twice will now be written once with a dagesh forte. Okay, that's the dot in the middle of the consonant. The dagesh forte represents the lost geminate consonant. So if you lose something, look for a dagesh forte and you'll find it. No, that's not true. The twin has reappeared, not as a consonant, but as a dagesh forte, the dot in the middle of the consonant. Now observe the following examples. Lisa, did you want to share something?
No.
You okay?
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, all right, good. So here, look at which means people, and now look at how it's pluralized. Amim. Now, see the dagesh, the dot in the middle of the second consonant, the mem? That's your doubling. That's your finding your lost twin. So now when you spell this word, it's going to be a reverse apostrophe for ayin. The patak is a A. Then you got to get M and another M. Then your hirek yod is your long I. And then your mem sufit, your final M. And you pronounce it amim. Amim. And that's peoples. Okay? Again, look at the original root. Look at how it's pluralized with the dagesh in there. How it comes from the original singular form. And, just look at it and say, oh, okay, I think I can get the flow of it. Let's go to this next word. Okay? You guys want to pronounce this? Katz. Very good. And that is your definition for arrow. Notice it's two consonants. Okay? In the original, there was a het, a sadeh, and a sadeh. A sadeh for sofit. But they were essentially, those were twins. One dropped out in your shortened geminate form, but now when you pluralize it, you'll notice that there's a dot, a dagesh forte in the middle of the sadeh, right there in the middle, and now it's going to be kitsim. Kitsim. Is that how you pronounce it, Luis? Kitsim.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that affirmation. Again, and this again means arrows. Notice that this is a geminate taking on the plural, and now again you're going to have all the original consonants back in play. Okay, sorry. Last word, okay, is okay. Who wants to say this word? Same thing. Het with a holam.
Hook.
And kof. Coke. Very good. Yeah, just like the soda that a lot of people like to drink. Coke. It's the real thing. Okay, Coke. Statue, okay, is what it means. And now look at the plural. The holom, the O, becomes a kibbutz, a U, okay? And then the kof becomes doubled with the dagesh forte in the middle. So kukim is how you pronounce the plural of coke. And now you have not one statue, but you have two or more statutes. Okay? Statutes. Now I'm talking about, statutes, not statues. Statutes. Laws or
Customs.
Yes. Thank you, honey.
It has to do with Torah also because it's
Torah.
mentioned in the book of Second Esdras.
I have a
in
question
chapter
if
6.
I can ask.
Okay, Luis, what is your question?
So on the right-hand side where it says original root,
Yes.
the authors of that book suggesting that that's not the root now?
I'm sorry, say that again?
On the right-hand column, right, where it says arrows, people, statues, and then in parentheses it says original root.
Yes.
What do they mean by original root? That it's no longer like that anymore, or it's still?
Well,
that's the part I'm.
it exists, but a lot of times they're written in the singular form. I mean, in the Germanic form, just two consonants. So sometimes if you come across it, you can say, all right, there's the typical shoresh, three consonants, but the teaching today is what happens if you only have two consonants in the shoresh or in the root. So that's why when you add a plural ending to a geminate noun, the original comes back into play. And you notice that here you have het, kof, and here you have het, kof. Although it's not written kof because the dagesh forte is implying a doubling. But you may not see this form in your Hebrew Bible when you come to words like statutes, arrows, or peoples. Just be aware. This is something just to be aware of, because the geminate seems to be the more predominant or current reading in today's Hebrew Bible.
Okay, so just for clarification, the author is saying that rather than to write a double kuf, they put the gesh forte, the dot in the kuf to compensate for
The missing.
doubling the same level.
Yes, correct. So for those.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, for those of you that didn't hear Luis, he's asking why is it not written this way, this original root anymore with three consonants? And a lot of times, because of the fact that the last two consonants are the same, just written differently, but the same, what's happened is that they've shortened it, and a lot of times you'll see this instead of this. And I just and Luis was asking, he just wanted clarification as to why the author is making this known, because now when you pluralize it, you're not going to have kof. You're going to have kof with us, the dagesh forte in there, the doubling. So again, it's almost like shorthand in a sense, Hebrew shorthand. You're writing one letter and you're putting a dot to say this is doubled. Good question. Very good question.
I grew up, they just taught us, growing up in Hebrew school, they just taught us what you're calling the Germanates at the far left. But they never showed us the original roots having like double letters. So that's interesting. I didn't know that before, so I learned something new today.
Oh, great. I take no credit. It's in the book. But yeah, I'm amazed with this language. They really cover all avenues when they teach Hebrew. So good. You may not see this, but you will definitely see this. Just be aware, students. All right. If there's no any more questions, we're going to move to the advanced biblical Hebrew class. Beginners, you're more than welcome to stay and torture yourself. That's not a problem. Last 2 weeks ago, I was teaching on chapter 14, call perfect weak verbs again. And again, I just want to point out that what makes a verb weak is in the first position of the root word, or the second position, or the third position. Those positions, as you look here, if there's a guttural, that qualifies it as being a weak verb. Or if you have a ayin. Remember, we just read a whole bunch of words with ayin, or the het. If those letters exist in the root or the consonant root of the verb, that considers it or makes it a weak verb. Okay, and so when I say when you see that Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral number 2, and Roman numeral number 3, what is it talking about? It's talking about the position. Okay, Hebrew is read right to left, so the first consonant is reflected with this Roman numeral 1. So 1, the first position, and any guttural in a first position makes this a weak verb. So amad, which is to stand, is considered a weak verb because of the ayin in the first position. In the second position, or the middle consonant, if you have a guttural in that middle position, like here, vachar, that is again considered a weak verb. Okay, vachar. All right. Here in the third position, okay, either an ayin or a het. If it's in the third position, which is the third consonant, so here you have a sheen, mem, and here you have an ayin. That is also considered a weak verb. Just know that, keep that in mind, and whenever you see this Roman numeral 1, 2, or 3, it's talking about positions of the shoresh, or the root, and you should have no issue. You should actually be able to follow along very well. Okay, I just gave you the rest of the paradigm to show you how, like for example, the first guttural in amad, it stays there. The vowels may change along the way, but again, this is again rudimentary. This is the way the Hebrew paradigms are charted out, and again, all of this compares against a strong verb. You notice this strong verb here, katal. This is again, whose favorite word is katal? Tammy's. Tammy's word, to kill, right? Tammy likes killing things. You know, I like to kill my meals because I'm so hungry. You know?
There was a joke going on in the chat. Isaac and I have been giggling.
You can tell you're hungry.
Yeah.
They were sharing what colleges they went to after you talking about Arnold and everything.
Okay.
And Brick said he graduated from Arizona State, but he said his second choice was Penn State.
Oh,
to go
Penn
to.
State. Oh, yeah.
And Tammy said that she went to State Penn.
State Penn. State Penitentiary. You're funny, Tammy. You're so funny. Okay, but look at katal. Look at the 3 consonants. None of them are weak. None of them are guttural. None of them have an ayin or a het, and that's why katal is considered a strong verb, because there's no weak gutturals or other letters. Okay, I'm gonna move it so Isaac has no issues with the camera, and there we go. Just more of the paradigm showing first, second, third guttural. I'm gonna move on to, okay, here's something new. See that Roman numeral 3, and you see the consonant aleph. Guess what? Aleph is a guttural. Okay, so aleph is considered also to be a weak verb. So if you see an aleph in a verb, that makes it weak. Look at this word here, matzah, which means to find. No wait, yeah, matzah means to find, I believe. Okay, or hata, sin. Okay, when you have an aleph in the third position, that makes it a weak verb. But I gotta be clear with you. If aleph is in the first position, second position, or third position, what does that make it? A weak verb. So I think the book could have made it easier for everybody by saying 1, 2, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3. Aleph makes it all weak because it's a guttural. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you again to show you that you're going to get all these words, and just so that you become that Hebrew grammarian, you know the difference between a strong and a weak verb. Okay. Any questions? Again, just the paradigm. And guess what? I got one last thing I want to teach you, and this is, I'm digressing back to chapter 10. I was teaching out of chapter 14, but I now feel that you are able to learn the Hebrew construct chain. And This is something that Tammy can relate to. She was probably in chains. But
Oh my goodness.
if she wasn't, I'm sorry, Tammy. That was just a bad joke.
She was,
but-
she was remembering her favorite word, kata.
All right. Okay, if you're open, guys, here we go. Let me. You can read this as I read it out loud. There is no word for of. In other words, whenever you see the word of in biblical Hebrew, you will not find it. There is no such word. Okay. Rather, Hebrew expresses the of, which is a possessive relationship between two nouns, by what is called the construct chain. Okay. For those of you who have studied Greek, again, I'm not sure many people have, but the construct chain is Hebrew's rough equivalent of the genitive case. In Greek, there are 4 cases: the nominative, the accusative, the genitive, and the dative. I took Greek, so I should know. Okay, but this grammatical relationship is created in Hebrew by placing 2 or more nouns side by side. You got to remember this. The nouns have to be side by side. Once they're separated, then that breaks the chain. That's why they call it a chain, okay? Now, if you look at this here, okay, in Hebrew, can you read this, Aldion or Luis? The Hebrew here? Oh, very good. Is it big enough for you guys to read?
Yes.
Okay, good.
On the chair, it's nice and clear.
All right. Well, kol ha'ish, okay? Now, when you translate kol ha'ish, it's going to be translated the voice of the man. And you can say, wait a minute, where's the definite article in front of the word kol? Well, it's right there in front of ish. Okay, kol is voice, ish is man, ha is the as the definite article. Okay, but now when you have it in this order, kol ha'ish, you can translate it the voice of the man, but you can also translate it the man's voice. I mean, that's the interesting thing about it is that the is now goes right before the man, but not the voice. Here you see the voice of the man. Definite article, definite article. Yet you only have it once here. But it is applied to 2 of the nouns right here. And so understand that you can translate it the voice of the man or the man's voice. Notice in the term, the phrase the man's voice, you don't see of in there at all. So know that you can translate it both ways, but depending on what how you want to translate it, this is where you get of from. It's in that construct chain. Okay, let's try this again. The next phrase in Hebrew is, I'll pause for my Discord. There you go. Melech haaretz, the king. Melech is king. Haaretz is the land. But here you notice the king of the land. The ha, the definite article on the last noun, also applies to the first noun. That's why you can say the king of the land. Another way to say it is the land's king. The land's king. Again, you have options, but this is the more proper way of again translating it. Let's go to the 3rd example. I'll leave the Discord guys to say this.
Eved HaMelech.
Very good. Oh, shucks. Sounded like a true Hebrew. Eved HaMelech. Okay, the servant of the king. Eved is servant. Melech is king. Ha is the. And there you get it. The servant. And here's that word of that's stuck in. It's implied. The servant of who? The king. Okay? So in the above examples, there is no explicit Hebrew word for of. Rather, it is implied because each set of nouns is side by side. That is, in a construct chain. In most instances, 2 different translations are possible. For example, kol ha'ish, again, we went through this earlier, may be translated as either the voice of the man or the man's voice. Similarly, Eved HaMelech may be translated as the servant of the king, or the king's servant. So while studying the construct chain in this chapter, the of translation is used throughout. And again, it doesn't have to be, but we're going to focus on it because we want to get this understanding of the word of and make it a part of your biblical Hebrew reading. Now, in the basic grammar of the Hebrew construct chain, two terms you need to understand: construct and absolute states. Okay, if we use the imagery of a chain, there are two links in the Hebrew construct chain: the construct link, okay, and the absolute link. The first of the two nouns in the construct chain is called the construct noun. Remember, Hebrew is right to left, so the first noun you see is the called construct noun, and it's said to be in the construct state. Okay, so whatever is the construct noun is considered in the construct state. Just remember the word construct. The absolute noun, absolute form of a noun, is also its lexical form. Okay, so now here, the last word in the chain is going to be your absolute noun, also known as the absolute state. Okay, in a construct chain, there is only one absolute noun. Okay, did you hear that? There's just one of this. However, multiple construct nouns may appear in the construct chain. So what this lesson is teaching you is that you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can have a very unlimited number of construct nouns, but there can only be one one absolute noun. Okay, so keep in mind, okay, this is where you have a king and you have all the wives, Solomon and all his wives. There's only one king, but there's many wives. The construct can be multiple, but the absolute is only singular, one by itself. All right, and the chain cannot be broken. So in other words, if you're going to have 4 construct nouns and 1 absolute noun, then we're talking about 5. Okay, 5 nouns in a row, and only one of them is absolute. The first 4 will be construct. Okay, this is the rule when it comes to the Hebrew construct chain. All right, and with that, I want to leave you scratching your head, scratching other parts of your body, and pondering what the Hebrew construct chain is all about. Isaac knows about scratching other parts of the body because it hurts. All right, any questions or comments? Shoot it to Lisa.
Just with the absolute noun is, just think of it as the owner, and then the construct is whatever. It's going to sound bad, but whatever the property is.
Yeah, whatever it owns. Yeah, exactly. Another good.
Yeah, whatever it owns. Yeah.
Very good picture, good metaphor, because again, the absolute is all by itself. It owns it all. It's like, again, the ruler or the suzerain, and all the construct nouns are vassals. There can only be one king, and all the rest are subject to the king. So keep that in mind. You will go a long way, because you know what? When you start reading Hebrew, you will see the construct chain come into play a lot. And I am not kidding you. That's why I wanted to teach this after you had a better understanding of verbs. And now that you can understand the nouns, and then you'll see the verbs come into play and how they all work in unison, it becomes very beautiful. It becomes very orchestrated. God loves this language, and he paints a beautiful picture with this language. So thank you, Luis.
It's a very high Hebrew, very poetic Hebrew. It's beautiful. Most people don't speak this way, but as a result, because it is God speaking, that's why.
Yes, and God speaks in the Hebrew, and He is very romantic, very poetic, very just, and yet very, very direct. He doesn't pull no punches. He is the author of languages, and He created the best language, His language, for us. And unfortunately, we weren't brought up in the land of His Hebrew influence, but we can always grow and learn and become a part of the Hebrew influence. And so just thank God that He's allowing us to learn it His way. Lisa?
In the chat, everyone was asking about your degrees.
Oh, my degrees? Oh.
Here we go again.
I told them that you're way too humble to be called Dr. George, but you basically have a doctorate.
Well, I have a postgraduate. Well, you know what? I went to school long enough where I got a whole bunch of degrees, and it doesn't mean anything. All these letters, all these alphabets, it's like Campbell's soup that went bad. I just throw it away.
That's what I kept telling everybody in the chat. They said, should we call him Dr. George? I was like, no, he doesn't want to be called
Nah, just call me Noble, call me friend, but never call me late for lunch, okay?
I was just saying, we're just like everybody else. We just wasted a few years and a whole bunch of money
Noble
on some
is the
degrees.
absolute noun. Your letters are the constructs.
Thanks, Luis. Yeah, well, again, just so you know, I got my undergraduate here in Hawaii. I got my graduate work here in Hawaii and up here in Hawaii, and I got my postgraduate up in the mainland, up in Boston, and then I went to do my Doctor of Ministry in California at Talbot. But I did not complete it because I kind of ran out of money, and I figured, who needs it? I can still teach, you know. So, yeah, don't call me doctor. No, just call me Noble, and call me for dinner. Okay, that's all I'm happy about.
Then there's Haagen-Dazs Ha Noble.
The noble Haagen-Dazs. All right, guys. So we're gonna wind this up. We're actually on time for once. Gosh.
We have a few prayer requests that came in, so if you're finished, I'm going to come up and say.
So I'm going to call up my wife. Isaac's going to break to a commercial, Discord people and
Good
YouTubers.
commercial, you guys.
And we'll come back after the commercial, and we will be with you to close up, okay?
Okay, we're back.
We're back. Adrian, you're so funny. I'm getting the third degree from all of you, huh? Even though I got 4 of them. Too funny. Well, guys, Lisa's going to share some of the prayer requests that came in. Again, this is really an important part of our ministry, is praying for people, and to do even more if possible. So, what do you got, honey?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not sure if Penny's still there, but she put a prayer request in early because she lives on the East Coast and was getting ready for bed. But she said, please pray for her friend Mark. He has a detached retina on his eye. And I know what that's like. I mean, my dad went through that when he was maybe in his early 30s, and he actually had to do like a cornea transplant. And then just several years ago, he was fixing a sink in a bathroom at the school where he was principal, and he didn't wear safety glasses, and his wrench fell into his eye. My dad might be watching right now, actually. I texted him earlier. But yeah, so now he has to have a prosthetic eye because it was the same eye that he had the detached retina. So that's nothing to mess around with. So.
And I learned from her dad's accident.
My friend Tony just had a surgery.
I always have safety goggles, safety glasses on when I'm working, especially upside down or under sinks and stuff like that, because you never know what's going to fly in your eye.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have to have that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a prayer request. You guys could adopt these. And then I told Terry Todd will pray for you. She's having some dizziness. Last week I know you said you had a headache, and now she was drinking a cup of coffee to try to stay up for the whole lesson, and
You're a
she was
trooper.
feeling a little dizzy. So we'll keep you in prayer, Terry. Please, someone adopt that prayer request.
Just do what Lisa does. Lie in bed and watch a show. You know.
But
Not to-
we really appreciate you moderating for us too, and to all the moderators out there. It's great
Yeah.
always to see you guys in the chat, and you're so friendly and welcoming. It's so nice to see you guys.
And don't feel obligated to be here. If you're not feeling good, please take care of yourself first.
Yes,
and
yes.
You can always watch us later, right?
We know you have businesses to run, and so, but we appreciate you being here when you can.
And a lot of you do have to run to businesses.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep putting this like right in front of Discord. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Also, we're continuing the prayer request from Stevie. I think she also had to go take care of some things, but for her sister and her nephew that she put in the prayer request last week. So we'll continue to pray for Stevie and her family. Also for the Linki Ohana on Maui, they have some prayer requests, some unspoken prayer requests for healing. So we're keeping you guys in our prayers too if you're watching.
Okay.
And also prayer for Isaac. He's had quite a bit of nerve pain and muscle pain over the past several years, especially from his accident. Maybe most of you guys might remember that he was a quadriplegic in 2010, and he has not been to a doctor since he was fully healed in 2011, although he hasn't had feeling in his feet for a while, up until maybe, 2 or 3 years ago? So he just started going to the chiropractor that I'm going to, and thank you for all your prayers. I'm really on my way to healing. I'm able to walk around. I can feel my hands most of the time. I went body surfing for a few days this past week with Noble. So I'm really, really grateful you guys are praying for me. If you could pray for Isaac, he's just starting to go to the chiropractor, and there's a lot of muscles that need to be moved around, and his spine is a little bit
Yes.
out of whack, and he's in a lot of pain. So if you guys could pray for him, that would be great. Because he does all of our tech. Without him, we would not be here.
Yep. No Isaac, no show.
Because with all of the college degrees and everything we got, that was before internet. So we have no idea how to do all this.
Yeah. We got the paper diploma when it comes to tech.
Yeah, I was still working in the public schools before internet or even before computers, so I did everything by hand, written by hand. So my knowledge of the computer and technology is really low compared to Isaac's. So
You said Terry Todd works as a beautician, yeah?
yeah, she owns a hair salon.
Terry Todd, you know a lot of those chemicals, yeah? Not
I think
good.
she's aware. She's
Yeah,
aware.
yeah.
I'm sure. I know you've looked into all that, Terry.
My
'Cause
my
she's on it when it comes
my,
to health.
my sister owned a salon too, and every time I go and get my hair cut from her or get my hair permed or colored, yes, I did all those crazy things when I was young. Man, all those chemicals were so strong. It just kind of made me dizzy. So I'm thinking, oh, well, there you go. There's a connection.
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
could be.
Then again, they had some really, this is before I met Lisa, they had some beautiful girls there too, and they made me dizzy looking at them.
Oh, no wonder you wanted to go there all the time. Okay.
The single man is not stupid in his search, okay?
Well, now you live with your hairstylist right
Yeah,
here. So
she gets all my hair now. So, any other prayer requests?
that's it.
That's
all
it?
I had in there.
Okay.
Did you guys on Discord have anything to add to that? Prayer requests from you guys? Nothing? Okay.
I'll pray for Johnson that work will go back to 40 hours a week. I think he's working back to 50 again.
Wow.
Give him a chance to rest, and then for
Oh,
Lise and
man.
his wife Hilda, pray that God watches over their ministry and their lives over there also in Texas. Texas is becoming to be a very questionable place sometimes now. With all the
With the Facebook moving over there.
with the EMFs, just the EMFs are really out. This morning, or last night, I should say, my ear was ringing. It was loud ringing. It hasn't been like that in a while. I forgot to turn my phone off. It was in the bedroom with us.
Oh,
And I'm not sure if that had any reason or cause, but that ringing stayed with me for 4 or 5 hours. It was just, I don't think I have tinnitus, but
yeah, I don't think you do.
I know that the EMFs are coming forward and they're going to be pounding us.
Oh,
left and
plus
right,
you were on the computer for quite a while,
Yeah,
the last
so-
24 hours. So.
Well, again, Well, I just want to pray for protection over everybody that's watching us on our YouTube channel and Discord channel.
Okay, go ahead.
So why don't we
You close this.
why don't we close in prayer?
All right.
Heavenly Father, we again lift you up. We thank you, knowing that nothing goes by you, nothing gets past you. You are again over all things, and as you are the Almighty El Shaddai, we want to just cry out to you for those that are hurting and suffering, needing healing and attention, or maybe even just fellowship. Father, there is so much people out there hurting, and we ask that you would allow us to be useful and helpful, and that you would direct us to those that need it. We thank you for, again, caring and watching over each and every one of us, having your shadow, the guardian angels as our shadows, keeping in step with us, protecting and guarding. We ask that you would, Lord, watch this coming week, and that you would keep us safe until we can come back together and reunite. So with that, Lord, we again give you all our prayer requests that Lisa had mentioned, Alan and his father, and for the number of unspoken prayers that are out there as well, and especially for the salvation for family and friends. We prayed this as a corporate prayer, that all our family and friends would come to know you, at least some of them, Lord, so that, Lord, we can praise you and glorify you for another soul that is in your courts. We thank you again for all this. In Yeshua's name, by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, to the glory of Abba, our Father, we all say, Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Right on. Hey guys, we love you a lot. We appreciate you for being here and joining us. We ask that you guys really be careful out there, okay? And that if something is hurting you or suffering is coming your way, be like Iyov and just cry out to God and be patient with him. He will answer, okay? Take care, guys.
Great to see you.
Shalom.
Shalom. Have a great week.